Yo, what's shaking, everybody? Welcome to House Divided here on Orange Bloods Live. I'm Jeff Ketchum. That's Chad Hastings. Do us a solid. Hit the thumbs up button, smash it, punch it, beat it, hook 'em it, whatever it is, like little euphemism you want to use. Do that thing. Do it. Just beat the hell out of it with some anger management. But we do appreciate you subscribe to the page, getting notifications, all those things. And shout out to everybody. Yo, to Mark Ruiz. We are in the building with Money B. We do appreciate all of you in the Specs chat. Should be a good day today. Steve Sarkisian did a press conference less than an hour ago. Some news and notes.
Terrible. Sandman, what are you doing? There's no need. I'm with Text Guy. Has Sandman ever considered counseling? We need to get the Sandman in counseling, I think.
We all need to consider counseling. It's not a horrible thing to go through. So a lot of little notes today in Sarkisian's assessment of the team at this part of the spring with 11 days until the spring scrimmage, Chad. I thought if you want to ask Anwar, and he just kind of volunteered this up. Matter of fact, it looks like he has more notes. Oh, wow. He's got a transcription of notes that he posted in our channel. Well, I'll let you know. First thing that Anwar made a point to mention was that he singled out Ryan Wingo again at the wide receiver position.
Mm-hmm.
And as we get started here on a Tuesday, I don't want anybody who was watching the show on Monday and heard us say, hey, man, you got to get a more consistent Jonte Cook, got to get something out of Isaiah Bond. You want to start seeing these guys start to, get mentions, and for Sark to say positive things about them, and for sources to mention that they were standing out. Interesting that Sarkisian comes out and says, quote, I would say it, and he makes a point. I'll say at the very top of here, Chad, quote, I would say at the wide receiver spot. So he's talking about all of them.
Mm-hmm.
Quote, the one guy that really jumps out is Ryan Wingo. From a true freshman perspective, when he's out there, it doesn't feel like a true freshman. He plays fast. He makes plays on the ball. He's not right all the time. I don't expect him to be right all the time, but he's making some full speed mistakes, and he looks very comfortable right now as a guy who should still be in high school out there playing with all of our guys, end quote.
Whew.
Mentions nobody else.
Catch, it's just like coming up with the spring game. Every bit of good news has to have some bad news that comes with it by definition. While that is phenomenal news for people that dig Ryan Wingo and people in Ryan Wingo's camp, how can that not be a message to everybody else? How can that not be a message to a Jonte Cook that's trying to take over a number one spot in his second year? How can that not be a message to 3 different transfer guys? Now, only one of them.
Silas is at home saying, keep my name out your mouth, Chad.
I know, right. And Silas, I understand it because we keep mentioning your name as needing to be in the discussion. He can't do anything about that right now. But isn't that a message to those other 2 guys, to Bond and Golden? Like, wait a minute. He was asked about the receiver. He, on his own, said the wide receiver position, and all he could talk about is the kid.
He said the one guy. That's his words.
The one guy at a position where pretty much every play, there's 3 of you. Sometimes there's 4, and in rare cases, there's 5. But all he mentioned was 1, the freshman.
I mean, look, yes, if you are any other wide receiver on the team, take note.
Yeah.
He just told you the one guy that really jumps out. That means none of the other dudes really jump out. In Steve Sarkisian's words. So, I told you yesterday that we needed to stop talking about the wide receiver position in the same goddamn sentence as Xavier Worthy and Adonai Mitchell. Like, we got to stop doing that.
Yep.
I think this is a really good point. Like, it's as if Sarkisian said, "Hey, Catch, let me give you a quote that will kind of verify what you're saying." And that's, hey, if I'm gonna single out the guy that I think is standing out, it's Ryan Wingo. And then he adds, he's not right all the time. He makes mistakes, but the mistakes he makes are at full speed. I don't know. Look, I'm gonna suggest that he's speaking to somebody with that quote. It's a hell of a thing to say that the one guy that stands out to you is a guy that's still making a lot of mistakes. But his mistakes are fast mistakes.
Yes, that's true. Now, the other thing we should point out, Catch, so just so we make sure we're being fully transparent here, remember, there's no one at that position that really has skins on the wall.
No, you're right. Well, Isaiah Bond does at Alabama.
Right. In this system, with this group, nobody is returning. No one is. In terms of, the one guy that is, 8 catches. 8 catches. And then there's some other experience trying to take that next step. So we've got to take that into account.
If I'm John Tay and I'm not playing well enough that I'm not getting a shout out like that.
Absolutely. If I'm wearing number 1, if I'm wearing number 2, if I'm wearing, what's Bond wearing? 7? What's he wearing?
I think so, yes.
11, whatever the number. I'd be those guys. Those 3 guys specifically, I'd be like, wait, huh? What? So, yeah, I think, and maybe that's good. Maybe that's ultimately good news. 11 days from the spring game. You got 144, I think it is, until opening kick. It's a long time to go. A lot of development. I think it's a good message to send. Good message to send to number 5. Hey, young man, you're doing a great job and we're noticing. And everybody else, and then you just slowly pivot to the rest of the room and go, you know what that means, right? Okay, let's go. That's it.
If I'm Chris Jackson, the wide receivers coach, the next 48 hours, I might even print that up, hang it up in the locker room, in the receivers room, be like, boy, you guys see what Wingo's doing over here? He's got the head coach talking about him. I couldn't find any quotes where he singled you guys out. So I just hung this one up.
Oh, I'd be all over him. Catch, I'd be all over him. So, we're looking into some 4 tight end sets. We're looking at some 2 back, 2 tight end sets, 22 personnel, because apparently we only have 1 wide receiver, gentlemen. Like, I'd go way overboard the other way.
12 tight ends this year because apparently we're going to be in 12 and 13 personnel, like, nonstop. You know what that means, guys?
Yeah, I'd lose my mind getting in their ear right now.
So, a few other things that stood out to me. And by the way, if you guys want to hop in again to the Specs chat, by all means, do so.
Yeah. Hey, Catch, real quick.
Welcome.
Quick before you get into it, let's give a congratulations to our contest winner because you sent it out on social media. James, if you're out there, congratulations. James was the winner of the bracket contest. Catch, would you like to tell him what happened at the finish line?
In the end, there was literally a tie at the top. This is Scott Van Pelt, Sports Center bad beat level of bad beatness.
Mm-hmm.
So 2 guys tied at the top, same number of points. Both had Purdue and Connecticut in the championship game, with Connecticut beating Purdue. So, like, tied on points. Both had the championship and the second place team. So for the TV from AV consultations, like a bazillion inches, right?
So where'd it go? So what, 55?
70?
65. 65.
65.
65.
For the 65-inch TV. the gift cards or the packages from Rogue Shop and Specs. It came down to the title score. And the loser had 81-74 for Connecticut. And the winner had 65-55. And in the end, the score ended up being 70-55. And
they got closer.
James ends up being the winner because I think when you combine the two scores together, he was 4 points away from he was off by 20. And I want to say James, the winner, was off by either 15 or 16. So it comes down to the actual scores. And I feel bad for the first place finisher who gets a Coke and a smile and has to shut the hell up.
Yeah. Well, and congrats to James. James, you enjoy that great package of prizes, including the 65-inch TV from AV Consultations. If you are like second place, if you are anybody else like me or second place or 15th place or 19th place and you didn't get the 65-inch TV, this is the place that can get you the TV that you need. Let's get it for you. There we go. AV Consultations, 255-8678, 255-8678. They can deck you out with that big screen you're looking for, multiple screen setup you're looking for, the best speakers, the movie room with all the cool furniture. Let them handle every detail. Let them handle every bit of it. They will not stop. They will not be done until you are satisfied. They've been doing this since 1988. Shout out to Tom and his crew again for providing that TV for the contest. And whether you want it or not, hell, James, you may want another one. When you find out how great it is, then you need to call 255-8678 or go to avconsultations.com. Good stuff in the contest. I've never even heard of that. I get pissed every time they ask me to do the tiebreaker catch because I know it's not coming down to a tiebreaker.
You're like, how am I supposed to know the score?
Yeah, I did a bracket where they asked me for combined points. So I just came up with a score and then you put the combined 152 or 106, whatever it was. But I've never been good enough for it to matter. Shout out to James and whoever it was that actually made that matter. All right.
So let me give you a little bit of breaking news real quick.
Hit it.
So we had somebody ask in the chat, in the specs chat, Bear Alexander in the portal. Now it's funny that Shook Ones would ask that because there's literally a section. As of 5 minutes ago, we were reaching out to Bear Alexander and his family members because there's some word that he was going to enter the transfer portal a second time and would leave USC and that might be looking to come back to Texas, like not the state of the state of Texas, but there was some speculation that maybe the Longhorns would be a school that he's interested in. So right as we're getting ready to vet that out, Jason just sent a text 6 minutes ago. I don't think you're in this particular chat group, Chad. It's me, Anwar, Alex, and Jason, I believe. But we're checking on it. There, I put Bear Alexander into the search engine on Twitter, and there's a bunch of speculation about it, but I haven't yet seen what I would call a reputable news organization that is reporting this. But I've seen some bootleggish Twitter accounts. I think there's a YouTube account. Look, the conversation is definitely out there. Has a single national reputable outlet or reporter reported this about Bear Alexander? No. I wonder how much interest Texas would have in Bear Alexander. To be fair, started at Georgia, played at USC last year, he's got a lot of talent.
Yeah.
And a lot of people think he would be like one season and gone off to the NFL. But we're on it. We're looking at it. We are. I can let you know the Orange Blood staff was checking into that this morning into this afternoon.
And he's D tackle, correct?
Yes.
D tackle. So your gut right now, Catch, would you rather have him or one of the Michigan guys?
Michigan guys.
Okay. That would be my gut. The number one guy, is it Grant? Is that his name?
There's Graham and there's Grant.
A Graham and a Grant. Grant is the one that's really stood out to me, but I'll admit I have not watched every bit of film on everybody.
So, if you're wondering about the Michigan guys, yeah, man, that stuff's out there too. The thing is, the thing you got to be careful about with the portal is that these players will have agents and representatives. And the agents and the representatives will tell the schools, oh, yeah, man, it's going to happen. This guy's going to enter the transfer portal. Before the portal window closed in January, the Longhorns were expecting Isaiah Bond to hit the portal. And there were semi-expectations that Kentucky's Barian Brown would hit the portal. But after a year ago, everybody was very much like, fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. I'll believe it when I see it. And he didn't enter the portal, although there were people connected to him who were indicating that he was. Same thing with Isaiah Bond. The Longhorns didn't recruit Deuce Wells, and they didn't recruit a couple of other wide receivers that were more notable names because they felt like we got to wait for a big dog and they felt like that was Isaiah Bond. So it wouldn't shock me if representatives of either of these two players are telling various schools, hey, yeah, man, there's a good chance he'll enter the portal. But it's a little bit like the Nick Saban thing. Like, technically, they never talked to Nick Saban back in like 2013. And, there was always, Jimmy Sexton was always able to kind of, I take calls all the time. Like, schools are interested in my coaches. But like, there was never, Nick Saban was never put into a position where he had to make the decision. So we speculated, we think we know what was going to happen, but we don't really know when there was never a when push comes to shove moment. There will be a push comes to shove moment with the two Michigan guys. And then those guys have to decide, am I really going to leave Michigan? We just won a title. I haven't even got my title ring yet. I'm a starter. I'm gonna be in the NFL. Like, am I really gonna leave? And if I leave, am I really gonna go play my team?
Well, I hadn't even thought about that catch. This could be like an NBA or MLB thing where you get your championship ring at the game. You could be at the big house
when you're the visitor. You come in and they present you your ring.
You walk out there in all the burnt orange and white, and they hand you the decorative box, as their they've already done it for their guys, right? You've already had your event.
Yeah.
They've already had it. The banner has been hung. Everything is in the stadium, and then they just hand it to you, and you wave to the crowd, and that Michigan crowd probably throws bottles at you because they hate you at that point. But yeah, maybe that could happen.
So there's a push come to shove moment, and I don't think we will know that until the portal opens and then we see what we're going to see. There are players still on this Texas roster that were rumored, or even some that, look, last year it was reported that Jaden Blue had entered the transfer portal. I won't call out who reported it, but it got reported. And Jaden Blue had to answer on Twitter like, fake news or whatever it was that he did. But, he refuted that he was transferring. He didn't transfer. So these things happen. Like, trust me, I'll be hearing about Barian Brown for like the next 4 years. That guy will be like an all NFL player, and people will still be asking me, hey, Catch, have you heard if Barian Brown's going to enter the portal? It's been out 2 years of that.
Yep.
And hell, he still has a portal window. So who knows? Maybe somebody's falling for the okie doke this April in the second half of it. Also, a little bit of breaking news before we get back to Sarkisian. Michael Fasusi, 5-star offensive lineman. I see the question. Fasusi is in town. Mark, he confirmed with Sukamel earlier today. He posted on Twitter, he's definitely planning on being in Austin today. Yep. So if something has changed, we'll let you know. We've got the modcast coming up later on this afternoon. I'm sure Jason will have an update on that, but he's been in communication with Fasusi today. So yes, unofficial visit today. and I'm sure they'll roll out the red carpet. He doesn't have to compete with anybody else. Michael Fasusi can just have a day, and we'll see how that goes.
And Mark, thank you for asking the question. And just a reminder that Recruiting Hour hits Mondays and Wednesdays at 4. Catch mentioned Tuesdays and Thursdays at 4. It is the Modcast. Jason Sukamel has been talking about that April 9th day for Fasusi. So definitely check out Orange Bloods Live, orangebloods.com to get the very latest info. Mr. Fasusi, the stud offensive lineman from Louisville. A
lot of little newsy nuggets today this hour.
Yeah, a lot of good stuff. We'll get back to that. A lot of good folks piling into the Specs chat. Also, just want to tell you real quick about the good folks over at Sinus and Snoring Specialist. There are 2 ways I know that I'm sleeping real well. I either sleep dead to the world and then I'm just wake up, or I sleep hard and dream weird. And last night was the second one. I had some of the weirdest, strangest dreams, but for some reason I will come out of that and I feel so good, so rested. That's what Sinus and Snoring Specialists can do for you. I'm not saying they're going to give you weird dreams. That's your responsibility. Get that QR code right now. Sinus and Snoring Specialists. They've been doing this for over 20 years. Dr. Slaughter, the very best surgical and non-surgical options that others do not have. He'll treat you right. Get rid of those allergies. Get you a CPAP if that's what you need. Maybe it's Inspire. Maybe it's something else like my situation. They're going to figure it out for you and get you feeling and resting better. Don't let all that stuff continue to get worse. Sinus and Snoring Specialists. Feel clear, rested, and healthy.
So can I tell you vaguely about a dream that I had last night?
Sure.
I usually don't remember my dreams.
I don't remember a ton. I don't remember a ton from last night. I just know it was weird.
But I woke up like at 6:15 this morning when I got up, and I think I'd just been having the dream, so it was fresh on the brain. I don't know if I was in prison or like in an army camp or something, but I was being restricted.
Okay.
And my wife wasn't in the dream.
All right.
And there were 3 women that I was trying to make a move on while in prison, or I don't know. It was weird, right? It's a dream.
Mm-hmm.
But I ended up like getting married to a woman who had the face, like it was her, but it wasn't her in the dream, of a former University of Texas female athlete. Which is strange because like a month ago, I had a different dream where I got married to a former University of Texas athlete. Mm-hmm. And I don't feel like up until then, I've ever dreamed about a Texas athlete in a dream, but like twice in the last month.
Women's sports really are taking over, aren't they? I mean, they really are. Just a lot of positive momentum. So what you're saying, even though we haven't discussed this, what you're saying is like this person, as an example, this person wasn't Clarissa Davis, but might have had Clarissa Davis's face.
Yes.
That's weird.
Yes.
That is really odd.
And even in the dream, I can remember thinking to myself, you sure look like a person that I know, but they weren't that person.
That's weird. That is very, very bizarre. And by the way, to Jared, 85% chance that dream never comes true. That's so rude. So rude. Rude, Jared. There's no reason. No reason for that.
In taking a shot at me, he gave me a 15% chance of that dream actually occurring. And I'm just gonna say, I think it's unlikely. I don't think there's a 15% chance there for me.
I do not think so either. Catch real quick before we move on. Vivek wants to know your gut. Do we actually get the Michigan DL?
I'm a skeptic, Vivek. I've been hearing it from the moment that it happened. Remember, there were rumors that one of them was in town until he showed up at the Michigan basketball game like 5 seconds later. So I'm a bit of a skeptic because of the Nick Saban thing, right? Like or the Barry and Brown metaphor, if you want to go there. But until sometimes seeing is believing. And, Isaiah Bond is on this team right now, but only because Nick Saban left. The window had closed. He was already in classes, and Texas was kind of sitting out there like, and then he falls into their lap because of the Saban decision. But he was a guy that they thought was going to enter the window, and then he didn't. And sometimes it happens, but most times it doesn't. I'm skeptical. It was not Tara Davis, Anwar Richardson. I was waiting for the guessing to begin. Anwar, that thing is, if it had been Tara, Tara, I think I would have wanted the full package. Like she's a completely devastatingly beautiful woman. Like, could I get, if I'm going to marry her in a dream, can I get all of Miss Davis? Or does it just have to be from like here? I don't know.
I would have started guessing. I just didn't know if that was appropriate.
Well, the reason why I say that the person in the dream just had the face of the person, because in real life, this person would be taller than me, but in the dreams, they were not.
Oh, I see. Interesting. Okay.
Just so you know.
Gotcha. Okay.
That's a hint.
Little hint.
There's only been thousands of athletes.
Yeah.
So guess away.
Right.
But it does put Carissa Davis, I believe, back in play.
It probably does. It probably does. I just can't imagine Clarissa Davis short, though.
No, I can't either. So
yeah,
that's what I'm saying. If I'm letting you know, they're 5'10", 5'11", or taller.
Okay. Fair enough. Okay. All right. We're definitely on. We're on the taller side. So we're not talking about like Jamie Carey here.
Exactly. I'm sorry, Jamie.
Sorry, Jamie.
It wasn't you in one of technically the two dreams. The other person, not as tall as me. So, But if we're talking about last night's dream specifically, that person should have been. Wasn't in the dream. And I remember thinking that in the dream, well, you can't be this person because you look like you're about 5'6", 5'7", and like, that's not the person. So just, weird dreams. Let's get back to Sarkeesian, Chad, because if we wanted to analyze my dreams.
Yeah, that'll take a while.
Well, what I can remember of things.
So we started on the offensive side with the Wingo comment. How about the defensive side of the ball? Seems like there was multiple comments there.
Well, yeah, and I thought that also was really interesting. He made a point to single out Malik Muhammad. And we talked about this a little bit yesterday, and I'm sure Anwar has as well. Look at Anwar just being weird. Stop guessing names, Anwar. There should be no reason, none. There should be no reason why any specific name should pop up.
Hey, you set it up. You kept saying it, so
Well, who? Me?
You gave him clues.
I gave everybody a clue.
Right, but that's what he's going to play off of that now. Now he wants to know.
I don't know how tall she even is. I don't think she's like 6 foot. I don't know. I'll go follow her on Facebook later and see just how tall she is. I don't remember. Sarkeesian made a point to single out Manny Muhammad. Muhammad's been battling a little bit of an injury here and there. He hasn't been 100%, but he said that Muhammad was playing with confidence and has had a much better understanding of the scheme, and even made mention that he had an interception in practice today. So, look, that's no insignificant thing look, when we looked at the wide receivers, he singles out a freshman who's technically not even a starter, I don't think, although maybe he soon will be. When he mentions the DBs, the first guy that he goes to is the former 5-star corner who was really important towards the back end of the year and you hope emerges as the corner this year. That's the guy you want him to single out. I mean, you just do.
Absolutely.
And he did.
And the fact that guy is the one guy, the one impactful player so far that was a little banged up at one time, right? Not long ago. And so that he's saying it's all kind of come back and he's looking good. That's great. Great news.
The other one that was really interesting to me is that he made a point to say that Jalen Gilbo is having a tremendous spring at the star position. Now, I would say a couple of days ago, I started, there'd been some buzz about Gilbo at the scrimmage. And that little bit of buzz on Gilbo at the scrimmage made me think, well, there is that interesting battle that's taking place at the star position between him and Austin Jordan. That John, because remember, the question is, if it's about getting your 5 best DBs on the field, is your backup nickel, like, how good is he? Because if he's really good, you could potentially bump him up and move Jahdae Barron into the Terrence Brooks position at cornerback if you think that that combination of players makes up your 5 best guys. Now, Terrence Brooks has had a pretty good spring, although Sark didn't mention him today. He said, with regards to Gilbo, who started as a true freshman at the star position in his first game over Jahdae Barron, he said, quote, he's back, end quote. I don't want to go too far in saying Jalen Gilbo has beaten Austin Jordan for that backup nickel spot behind Barron. Maybe that's unfair. But Sarkisian made a point to single him out, not Austin Jordan, says he's back. That's a pretty big vote of confidence for Sarkisian towards Gilbo.
Absolutely.
And he mentioned that Sark, I just saw this, so I said it, but I didn't mean to copy Sark. Anwar writes in his notes, in addition, Sarkisian said the goal is to get the 5 best defensive backs on the field.
Look at there.
Aaron and Gilbo can play multiple positions, as well as Andrew Makuba. All those guys can play nickel. Makuba plays safety. Those 2 guys can play corner. So interesting stuff, I think, in the defensive backfield. Something to keep an eye on. Gilbo reemerging as like a viable player in this defense might put, we're looking at the Longhorns are going to have to get rid of like 4. They're at 89 scholarships. They probably want to go into the portal and get a guy or 2. So they're going to need maybe as many as a half dozen guys to portal out when this spring is over. If you're Austin Jordan and you're going into your 3rd year and now you might be 3rd nickel, I don't know. Like, is Gilbo 2A? Is he 2B? Or is Gilbo 2 and he's 3? What are the implications of that? That's a question that he would have to ask himself when the spring ends. But I mean, in the portal age, these are things I think about. And we can't pretend like they're not things that are occurring behind the scenes.
Catch, before we leave DBs, Jelani McDonald got a little love today as well.
He did. He said, quote, and by the way, thank you, Anwar, for putting these quotes in our little chat so I can just read them out. Jelani McDonald has made some tremendous strides at safety. He's very rangy. He's very physical. He's a good tackler. I think the instincts thinking about in high school, him basically playing quarterback the majority of the time, that football IQ is translating over to the defensive side of the ball. He's seen things unfold. It's enabled him to react well. We got a glimpse of that from him last year on special teams, and now it's carrying over to defense. Okay, Sark. Jelani McDonald gets a volleyball clap. That's what you want to hear if you're Jelani McDonald.
6'2", 211 is how they're listing him for this season. He is a freak dog, Catch. And now if there's some football to go with the freakiness, that's great stuff. We talked about him. We devoted a whole show to him a few months ago, kind of discussing what it could be. That's great news.
Those are 3 DBs when asked to talk about, when asked to talk about like the DBs that stood out, he went Malik Muhammad and went into great detail to explain what Malik Muhammad has been doing. He mentioned Jelani McDonald. He went into great detail to explain himself to why he's mentioning Jelani McDonald. And then he does the same thing with Gilbo. So it's a little bit different than like, hey, he mentioned 3 names. he mentioned 3 names and provided context. And, you know, it tells us something about those 3 guys. And then you go, well, what is it that he didn't say? Whose names did he not call out? Who's in competition with those specific players? And you can kind of you might not be able to go so far as to say, oh, well, this guy's definitely going to transfer now. But you can go, okay, well, that impacts this player significantly. You know, with McDonald, think about the way the safeties are set up right now. It's for most of the spring has been Michael Taft and Derek Williams with the 1s and Andrew Makuba and Jelani McDonald with the 2s. Well, we know that Makuba's easing his way into that first team deal. But if McDonald is coming along and Taft, they think is a really good player, then when you look at the true freshman safeties, Xavier Filsaime as a perfect example, he's a 5-star in camp right now. McDonald now is something in his way. He's not a name and a body. He's a high-level prospect that Sarkisian is saying you can see him flipping the light switch on. And so when you think about the way the safeties are going to be stacked this year, either Xavier Filsaime is going to be a real badass that's even better than what Jelani McDonald is doing, or maybe it'll be a little tougher for the freshman 5-stars, the freshman recruits at safety to get in this year than it was a year ago when they really didn't like their starters. Derek Williams was banged up and wasn't consistently healthy, and you didn't have Andrew Makuba. So don't freak out if the young guys aren't getting on the field right away, because Sarkisian is telling us with the comments on McDonald today, he thinks they're 4 deep, like legitimately 4 deep at safety.
Speaking of 4 deep, we're up over 400 in the Specs chat here on House Divided. We got some good chats coming in, including another guess on who Ketch was dreaming about last night, the former UT female athlete. We'll get that guess coming up, but right now Ketch is going to tell you about something he doesn't guess about. It's something he knows about. My perfect franchise. Ketch, let him know.
Man, it's real simple. You got an idea in the back of your head that you've been thinking about for years, the thing that you want to do, your big idea, and you think you can pull it off, but where do you start? What are the first steps? What do you need to do? That's what Andy Ledke does over at myperfectfranchise.net. He helps make the dream come true. He helps answer that question, those questions of what has to happen first, and then what, and then what, and then what. And once you get into some then whats, that's when Andy gets paid. Like, initial consultations, all of those things. He's going to talk to you and figure out if he can actually help you before you ever have to worry about like whether or not you need to pay anybody. What's this going to cost? It only costs and it only works for him if the dream comes true. Reach out to him, 404-973-9901. Text him, email him, Andy at myperfectfranchise.net. He's had a lot of success with Orange Blood subscribers. There's a reason why he just continues to be a high-level sponsor for OrangeBloods.com and Orange Bloods Live. He's having success. Him having success means we've had some really incredible success stories. Reach out to Andy today and become the next one. My perfect franchise.
All right, as we hit the Specs chat, Ketch, here is the latest guess. Jared says, Aaron is going to be perturbed when he finds out you're dreaming about Sonya.
Look, I'm not opposed to a dream about Sonya. No offense, Aaron. But as I said, there are thousands of athletes.
So that's a no.
You guys are trying to think of who you guys would be dreaming of, and you're projecting that onto me. Again, I've got no issues with an Olympian in my dream, but I can confirm level 1, Aaron, you can relax. It wasn't Sonya. It wasn't any of the Sonyas.
No Sonya. Okay, Sonyas are
if
out.
I used to work with a Sonya in the Texas SID office, it wasn't her either.
Okay, fair enough. And Vivek's throwing in a safety comment. Vivek says, I think Makuba needs to clearly start over Taft, though.
Okay. Yes. And I think they think that will eventually happen. I think those are the expectations, but they have a lot of respect for Taft. He's a good player. And it's still pretty early. Again, they've got 20-ish practices left before they'll put together a depth chart towards the end of August. Long time to go still.
Vivek, thank you for those. The chat, we love everybody jumping in. And if you want to send us a super chat, we will get that right to the front. Let's also have Lisa tell you about all the stuff at Specs. They sponsor the chat for us. We appreciate them. Here you go.
You're needing Specs same-day delivery can save the day with our Specs app or online shopping. From world-class wines to hard-to-find spirits and craft beers to gourmet foods, delicious snacks, and spectacular sweets. It's Specs. Cheers to savings.
Thanks to everybody jumping in the chat. Oh, here we go. Catch. Is it Cat?
Look, again, nothing wrong with that dream. But you guys, it's a little more obscure than naming all of the most famous. The closest answer so far, I would say, is Jamie Carey. Like, it's kind of that level of obscurity. It's a name you would know. But it's not like, let's name the greatest player in every sport and see if it was one of those. I'm just letting you guys know if you're gonna play the guessing game, there's no like retired numbers or Mount Rushmore. Like, you're gonna have to fit. It's more middle tier, I think, of all-time athletes than that.
As LFG is pointing out, Catch is an equal opportunity dreamer. Then
damn right I am.
Exactly. He's dreaming at all levels.
I'm hoping that dream. The thing is, it wasn't a bad dream, and like nothing happened in the dream other than, those marriages where like they're set up when you're young. It kind of felt like that. I was like introduced to the woman who would be my wife. It wasn't like we've been dating and I asked her to marry me or anything like that. It was a dream. It was kind of just.
But you said it was in prison, right?
I think so.
Yeah. When they say arranged marriages, that is not what they're talking about.
I was in a place where I wasn't in a place to be dating. And then I was like introduced. There were 3 women, but one was introduced. And the other 2, wasn't like the other 2 were former University of Texas athletes.
Hey, number one question for me, if it's a set up marriage and I'm in prison, I want to know if the woman can protect me in prison.
I do want to say, for the record, I never specified that it was a woman. Now,
but then you let us know it was
likely that could happen, but I'm just saying you just assume something. I've never once. I did say it was a female athlete.
You did. No, you said it was a female athlete. Right. Yeah. So if I'm getting set up with a female in prison, my first thought is going to be, I know my level of being.
I was going to make a Brandy Perryman joke, but in the end,
that's weird because I was going to say Reggie Freeman. So anyway, I was trying to make sure that she could help protect me because I know I wouldn't be able to help protect myself. So I would hope that, I look over and it's like Nia Jax for those wrestling.
You're hoping that, you want a dark alley pick.
I really do.
If I got to go down that street, I want this athlete with me.
Could it be Ronda Rousey or Holly Holm in their prime, please? Can I have
that? In Texas. Okay. Let me tell you some other names that Sarkisian mentioned.
Yeah.
Trey Wisner, Jaden Blue.
Okay.
Again, every time I hear a running back between Blue and Baxter being singled out, it's always Jaden Blue.
Sark's going blue.
He said Kelvin Banks and Jake Majors had good scrimmages. He made a point to say, I already told you about Jelani McDonald and Jalen Gilbo. He mentions Colin Simmons definitely showed up in the scrimmage. We talked about that a lot yesterday, a couple of sacks. He says, there are others, but those are the names that first pop into his mind when asked to answer the question about the scrimmage. One other question, Anwar specifically, this was Anwar that asked the question to Sarkisian about the transfer portal and incumbent players. I'll just read you the quote real quick.
Okay.
Quote, I would say that the two guys, obviously Isaiah Bond, Matthew Golden. Isaiah, you definitely see the flashes. You see the big playability. He had a couple of big plays today. You see the speed element that he provides. There's still nuances schematically that sometimes can jam him up a little bit, but he's a little bit more familiar just because of the time at Alabama and some of the carryovers systematically. You still see it there. Matt Golden was a little bit slowed early on because of a previous injury that he came into us with from Houston. So we kind of had to pace him back into play. But I thought the last couple of days, we've started to see the real version of Matthew Golden. He's got very strong hands. He's a smart player. He's sudden. We see the return ability. So we feel very comfortable in those two.
All right. Good news.
I mean, on the surface, there's nothing terrible about any of that,
No, but it feels like room to grow in both situations.
Yeah. There was a little bit of like, she's nice.
Mm-hmm.
Now he did say Isaiah Bond made a couple of plays today, but he sure didn't mention him as having made plays in the scrimmage. So,
it's a little bit of that voice goes up. No, she's cute. Like that. You ask the girl, no, he's all right.
Kind of baby steps for both of them.
Mm-hmm.
And, that's okay. Again, they've got a lot of time still left to fully feel acclimated in, but it's pretty clear we've been reporting this, and Sark just said it out loud. Those guys are still TBA to a certain degree. They're both working on, each guy's got like different issues of trying to work the kinks out, but it hasn't worked out just yet.
Gotcha. All right. Remember, we're working our way towards buy or sell. We're going through notes today from Sark's meeting with the press. We got some more chats coming up. Also, want to remind you real quick, Deep Eddy Vodka. The tasting room is out there in the beautiful Hill Country. I'm sure they had a good view of the eclipse yesterday. Get on out there and create your own eclipse, if you know what I'm talking about, in Dripping Springs with Deep Eddy Vodka. Make sure you get your DD to take you out there like I do, or maybe you do a little Uber. Please do it responsibly. They're all about having a great time, doing it responsibly with 8 different flavors of the best vodka on the planet. Everything is distilled 10 times, gluten-free, and made in small batches. What does that mean for you? It's just badass, and it has been since 2010. Get on out there. You can sip it slowly with some flights. You can get some of those great cocktails. Tell them to make you a dreamsicle. You will not be disappointed. If that is your thing, trust me, and have some of that Crimson Creek Smokehouse barbecue as well. Thursdays and Fridays, 11 to 7, Saturday, 11 to 5, Sunday, 12 to 5, the Deep Eddy Vodka Tasting Room. All right, Catch, we have a couple more chats. Before we get there, though, the offensive line comment from Sark, thought it was interesting. We discussed it earlier today. You want to hit that one real quick?
Yeah. Thank you for reminding me. He was asked about the left guard position. And in answering the question, he just made a point to say he's asked specifically about the left guard position. And he came back and said, well, with Nato and Connor and Cole and DJ, we're just trying to come up with the right combos on guards, and he's very generic about it. He made a point to list all 4 of the guards on. What I thought was interesting about it was he didn't default DJ Campbell into it. There are obvious starters on this team.
Mm-hmm.
I think Jake Majors and Kelvin Banks are 2 of them for Sark. Sark singled them out, and I think in his mind, those dudes are – he might say, well, it's a meritocracy, and every position starts over at the beginning of every spring, and then we have battles to this. No, some guys are starters. They just are. Kelvin Banks is a starter. We can't – let's not be naive, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I think those 2 guys are. I'm kind of surprised because I thought DJ Campbell and so does Alex Dunlap, who graded every offensive line play by every offensive lineman for the last 10 years. DJ Campbell was the second highest rated interior lineman or just lineman on the team. So I was a little surprised that DJ Campbell wasn't mentioned separate of some DJ Campbell and Neto spoken in kind of the same sentence. Like one guy proved to be like a plus starter last year, and the other guy you couldn't completely talk about that way. But he mentioned all four guys in a group together, no mentioning of separation. I think it spoke to me like a comment a coach would make when, hey man, we might have some guys transfer, but I don't want my offensive lineman. I don't want to lose my backup right guard or my backup left guard because they think they're not going to play. Now, what's really interesting is that coming out of Saturday, Neto is still a name that we're hearing people say they want to get that guy potentially into a full-time role. If Neto were to jump Hayden Conner, you can absolutely make a case that Hayden Conner should consider transferring. Like this is one of those deals where like Texas fans are like, shut up, Catch, don't say that out loud. But like we have real conversations here. And if a senior starter is losing his job, like at any school in America, that's something that they've got to think about.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought it was interesting the way he talked about the interior linemen, the guards specifically,
right?
And didn't say we've got two starters and two backups. He just said, well, we've got four guys, and those guys are battling. And I was like, oh, okay, well, that's interesting. Like again, It takes some reading. The quote is harmless, right? It really is. But again, sometimes it's about what someone's not saying specifically in a comment when they're saying something. But you might dig around in and pick the bones apart on what did that mean when he said that. It was a little curious for me.
Okay, so deep down, you think he might tell us he knows who his left tackle is and he knows who his center is and he knows who his right tackle is. But if we said, all right, who are your guards? He'd say, check back with me.
See, and I don't think DJ Campbell's playing at a higher level, I think, right now than Cam Williams is. But there is a reason why he didn't. The thing is, if he singles out DJ Campbell, but then doesn't single out the left guard.
Doesn't say Connor's name.
Right. Then Connor's like, shit, he said DJ's name, but he didn't say my name. Am I about to lose my job? You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
That's how I read that comment, as he didn't want to single out anybody. He wanted them all to be mentioned in the same breath, even though we know that's not true. Because I think he doesn't want to damage their ability to maintain those players. Remember back in the day, we knew that Casey Thompson was going to be the backup quarterback. He wasn't going to start over Quinn. But and even with the battle with Hudson Card back in the day, like there was a whole lot of, Casey had done some things behind the scenes that didn't necessarily, I don't know that Sark needed to come out and kill the guy. He certainly didn't say anything that warranted, I think, maybe a call out. But there had been some things that, like he went home from a practice for a day, just went home. And nobody really knew where he was. But they still talked out loud publicly in a way because they wanted to, as best they could, make sure Casey Thompson was on the roster for the season and not in the transfer portal. They wanted to keep him as a viable backup. Well, that's maybe not what Casey Thompson, he wanted full transparency so that he could make as fast and quick as a decision as possible. I think there's a little code in there, and I think it's geared towards the backups. And I think it, even to go a step further, I think it may be geared towards that left guard position.
Interesting. Specs chat here. We'll get a couple other things in. I do have one more question for you football wise, but the folks are still trying to guess. Uncle Mickey says Ron McKelvey is the guess of who you dreamed about.
No, but
not Ron McKelvey.
The Sonya that I know, I met through Ron McKelvey. I met Ron McKelvey through this person.
Oh, I like that. Okay.
Yeah.
Oscar has a guess. Is it Scotty Scheffler? It's Masters week.
Should be in reality, right? Like I should be thinking, I'm going to be watching the Masters. this weekend. Like if
He
Scotty shows up in a dream, that shouldn't be outlandish.
By performance, he may be the hottest Longhorn on the planet right now, right? Other than a couple of those softball players, if you know what I'm saying, Oklahoma. Number 1 team in the country as of today. Congrats to Texas softball for that. The other guest I love, Catch, Farrah Fawcett, participating in UT sports as far as she is in Catch's dream.
You know what's interesting? I was never a Farrah Fawcett. She was slightly ahead of my time.
Mm-hmm.
I'm born in 76. I can remember going to see Purple Rain in 1984 and walking out of the movie theater at the age of 7 thinking, I want some of that. And, you know, it was the female lead in the movie.
It was Apollonia.
It was Apollonia.
Right.
I can remember seeing Porky's as a young kid. And like it became very clear in retrospect that I was like a straight man. I liked women. Whenever I saw naked women, I liked them. But Farrah Fawcett was probably like 4 or 5 years too early for me because she was like a late 70s, early 80s when she was Charlie's Angels in her apex. I was never like a Farrah Fawcett guy. Like she's gorgeous. I think she's a stunning. And like as I got older and like started to see the people who did have Farrah Fawcett as their pinup girl, I got it. But like that was never my thing. I would actually be surprised. I mean, I guess I shouldn't be surprised, any more surprised than I was last night. Like I guess if you know the name and the face of somebody, they can be in a dream. But like Farrah Fawcett, never like she's in my top 10.
Fair enough. All right.
Were you
Fair
a Farrah
enough.
Fawcett guy?
Yeah, I mean, I am being a little bit older than you, a little bit of Charlie's Angels, Farrah Fawcett. So yeah, but I mean, was she one of the, the first women that I really connected with on TV? No, but she was definitely noticeable.
Like I'm Heather Thomas from The Fall Guy.
Yeah. I'm more Farrah than I am.
That comes after Charlie's Angels.
Right. Yeah. I probably was watching a little more Charlie's Angels than Fall Guy in terms of those two.
I like the woman that was in Buck Rogers. I remember her too.
Of course. Aaron Gray.
Aaron Gray. Yes.
Oh, yeah. No, I've got a picture of Aaron in the room. We've already shown that picture. Do I have it? I don't think I have it within reach.
And I think Aaron Gray, like Buck Rogers was, I think when I was 5.
Yeah,
so the answer to the question might actually, well, then there's Laura Ingalls.
Yes, you have admitted your Laura Ingalls situation.
Yeah, I do. I have always loved Laura Ingalls. I loved Laura Ingalls when I was a little kid and I was watching a lot. I was a big Little House on the Prairie syndication kid. I'd come home from school and it would be on. So yeah, we've hit like maybe the top 5 or 6 from age 5 to 6-ish, 7.
Yeah. And sometimes it does matter when you and that famous person are right about the same age. Sometimes that really matters. And hold that thought for buy or sell coming up here in just a second. Catch, before we get to buy or sell, I wanted to ask you a quick overarching question about the team. But do you have any other specifics you want to hit before I do that?
No, I think that's you. I'm glad you reminded me of the offensive line thing just because I wanted to mention that. I thought it may be nothing, but that may be something that my weird brain thinks of that maybe a lot of people won't.
Okay.
So, just my perspective of that.
Okay. So, the thing that happens when you come around to spring practice and spring game, where if the offensive line's awesome, it means the defensive line might not be. So, so on and so forth. Right now, from the reports you're getting from Texas practice, do you feel any level of possible concern for either offensive line, defensive line, receivers, or defensive backs in terms of the matchups going on? And we might get to the other side of it thinking, wait a second, if this group dominates, what does it say about the other group? Any concerns about any of those 4?
No, I think this offensive line is going to be really good. They lose Christian Jones, but he's replaceable. He's a good player, but I think they think they're going to have good players. They need more. Christian Jones wasn't first team all Big 12. He wasn't. It's not like you lost that guy, but he was a good player. He's a good player. And again, I think they think that Cam Williams is going to replace him. And then you look across the rest of the line, and everybody should be getting better as they go into year 3 of the of the young guys. Defensive line, look, I think we know what those questions are. I think they got a lot of athleticism and talent at defensive end. There are questions in the middle of that defensive line. So if you don't notice guys making plays up front and it feels like Texas is running the ball or the offensive line control the line of scrimmage, that side of the ball and that line should be better than the defensive line right now. With the DBs and the wide receivers, I think they're both capable. I think you feel good that forget about whatever happens at the spring game. You've heard through reports on practice and even Sark's own words that the secondary has been playing better. So I almost think that if the wide receivers have a big spring game, everybody can go, woo, okay. For the next 3 months, I don't have to do that thing where every conversation is that the receivers are going to be a problem. So, I think that I think the overall answer to the question is no. I think that one of the reasons why you watch this show, one of the reasons why you're on Orange Bloods, it provides you so much more context of what's going on at every position going into the spring game, that no matter what happens, you should be able to go, oh, yeah, no, I've heard that's happening. Or, yeah, it's kind of an anomaly. That guy just made a big play, but he hasn't made big plays throughout the spring. So either way to step up in the moment, or maybe don't make too much out of that because he didn't have 15 days of that.
Fair enough. All right. Anything else, or are we ready to buy or sell?
Let's do buy or sell.
Let's do it. You want to go first or second?
I'm going to let you go first today because I'm going to make this up when it's my turn.
Fair enough. We're going to
finish.
finish
I kind of know what my questions are. I just didn't type them in.
All right. We're going to finish off with one that will not make my mother proud, but what are you going to do? Let's start with this one. Buy or sell number one, Catch. Last year, JT Sanders caught 45 balls and Nye Black caught 20. This year, Nye Black gets 25 plus.
Buy, but I think like 30-ish may be the cap for this year, because Gunnar Helm's a good player, and I don't think that they automatically don't want to get Gunnar Helms some of those targets as well. So I think you could take Sanders' 45 and add Helms, I think like 14 or whatever he caught last year together, and then split those in half. And maybe you're at 30-ish for both, and that might actually be the sweet spot.
All right, buy or sell number two, Catch. If I tell you in 1992 that there will be a women's title game in hoops that has more people watching than the men, you'd have punched me in the face.
Sell. The funny thing about that, I don't know why you said 1992. Was there a reason for that year?
That was around back-to-back Duke time, and when I felt like men's basketball was still
was that its apex? Basketball.
Yeah, it was still quality.
Well, I'll probably sell in the sense that look. I grew up in Austin, and that's not too far away from Jody Conrad's pump, at their absolute heights. Mm-hmm. So I can remember there being 10,000. Ish, kind of on a nightly basis for women's basketball. And I really watched women's basketball because of what Conrad's teams had been. I lived in Austin in 86. I just moved to Austin when they win the national championship. So it was probably planted in my brain as an entity probably earlier than a lot of people that wouldn't have lived in Austin for certain. I don't know. If you live in Waxahachie, I don't know what would make you what women's would have made women's basketball on your periphery. I lived in Austin, so it was on mine, but I could have easily still lived in Waco, and maybe in 92 it's not. So I'm going to say that sell. And I don't think I'd ever punch you in the face at any point over such a suggestion.
Fair enough.
I don't know when I've ever been college basketball men only. I don't know, that would get me to punch you, but it's a hell of it. Look, I will remember this women's tournament more than I'll remember the men's tournament. And it might not even be close. That the last three Iowa games just by themselves were all events. Iowa and LSU was an event that set records until they played UConn, and then that set records, and then they play the national championship game against South Carolina, and it's not even prime time, and they still set records. No offense to the men's tournament. Caitlin Clark and the women just did the damn thing this year, and kudos to them. Like, I have no emotional reaction to the women drawing bigger crowds than the men. It doesn't make me insecure or angry or like, I don't believe it. It's like, okay, I can see why that would be the case this year.
Yeah, and I'm not sure about crowd numbers in the house. I haven't heard that one, but the number to keep an eye on, 18.7 million was the average for the women's championship. 24 million was the peak number. The women's final has never had more people watching on television than the men's final, ever. And I don't know how close it's ever been, but it's never happened.
Probably in the next 2 hours.
I was going to say, and sometime today, I think we'll get the official number that it may have happened for the first time. So we'll pay attention to it.
And the men may have put themselves at a disadvantage by starting that game, past the 9 o'clock hour on the East Coast. Yeah. I don't get that. I didn't make the whole game. I fell asleep.
Yeah, and on TBS.
Once we got into the second half and they got under 10 minutes and it was like, look, UConn's winning this game, I started to put my head on a pillow, and I think I barely remember like popping up and seeing – I didn't see one shining moment. The men put me to sleep.
All right. Speaking of putting them to sleep, Catch, buy or sell number 3. Today you'd pick UConn to three-peat.
Sell, that's so hard to do. UCLA is probably the last to do it, like back in the Wooden era.
I think you're right.
I would imagine. Like, it's not jumping out to me. I feel like I know most of the winners from the 70s on. I don't know what they've got coming back. I saw Duke on ESPN's way too early top 25 earlier today. They've got a big time recruit coming in. I'll just take the field that it's really hard to repeat. The repeats are even harder, but I don't discount the notion. It's crazy. They have more national championships post 1999 than any two schools you want to put together.
Right. They have twice as many as Duke and twice as many as Carolina.
You could add Carolina and Duke together. You can add up Kentucky to either of those schools.
Yeah.
UConn is – in the last 24 years, they're averaging a title once every 4 years. They're not far away from being the Patriots. And they've had different coaches. I don't completely understand it, but it's a thing.
Since 99, they've had more than Villanova, Kansas, and Kentucky combined. I mean, it's just kind of is what it is. And first time to go back-to-back and win games by the same number, like the averages since UCLA, since the team, than so what you're mentioning there.
They end up being a great team for this year. I feel stupid in retrospect that I didn't take them in the bracket contest, that I had Houston winning the national championship. Now, I had, to be fair, if you told me Shed was going to get hurt in the Elite Eight and miss the game.
Right. But you and I did the same thing. We were both thinking Field over UConn, and Hurley and the crew just obviously proved us wrong. Congrats to them. Buy or sell number 4, Catch. You did watch Raw after Mania, and you're hooked enough to something that you're going to check in for a month or so.
That's probably a buy. I was into Raw more than I was the basketball game. Now, to be fair, Raw started early, and we got like 30 minutes of Rhodes and Raw and The Rock. And it's kind of weird at times. It was a weird, from the 25th minute of the show to like the 45th, there's like a 20-minute window when they were in the ring together. And it was just a little weird. But I watched this week pretty much the whole show. I had it on, and if at worst I was flipping back and forth between the basketball game and Raw. Yeah, no, I'll check in for a month or so. Can it hold me? It feels very UFC-ish. Okay, I'm in. Or for some people, the World Cup in soccer, right? Where or golf for that matter, where there's you get into that, like there's a big event and you're there for those. Can they make you more of a full-time person? I don't know, but they had me yesterday. I'll probably watch next week to see where are they going with Cody.
Mm-hmm.
Like who's his rivalry? What's happening? So there were some storylines from WrestleMania that they didn't quite get to like fully fulfill. I thought with Cody yesterday that he'd get towards the end. And the thing with The Rock, I was like, somebody's coming out, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they're going to interrupt the celebration. But The Rock came in only to tell us that he was leaving. So what does that mean for the right now? I don't know. So we'll see.
All right. And finally, Catch, let's get to some of my 1974 crew, somebody that's hitting 50 a little bit before I am. Buy or sell number 5. Today, Jenna Jameson turns 50. Jenna is a bigger cultural crossover from porn to mainstream than Ron Jeremy.
Buy. Like, we know Ron Jeremy almost as a laugh as much as anything else, not to demean like what he put on film. But like, you know, he's kind of made kind of like a sleazy character, like a running joke. You know, if he pops up in a TV show, you'll be like, oh my God, that was Ron Jeremy. And then you'll all kind of chuckle and then you kind of move on. Jenna Jameson was like a movement. I can remember dating women who would suggest Jenna as like part of the two-piece, if you know what I mean. And like, that's, I can remember when she was at her peak, I was shocked at how many women dug them some Jenna Jameson videos.
Interesting. Okay.
I'm just saying out loud, the quiet part. The women like porn too. And in her prime, she was like a thing. Like, I know chicks that like, that was their stash. It was just Jenna videos. And, you know, I've never met a person that was like, hey, you know what I have? I don't know how big of a fan you are or not, but I have the entire Ron Jeremy collection on Blu-ray. Like, I've never seen that.
Right. I guess that's true. That might be a little different than a crossover discussion, just in terms of the ability of everybody across. Forget about porn fans, all across all walks of life.
She made it mainstream, like as mainstream as it can be.
Yeah, I feel like you're right, and it's probably her over him, but I thought I would put those two names in there.
I enjoyed the question. There may be people in the chat that checked out on us.
Yeah, just to be weird. Happy birthday to Jenna. All right, Catch, what do you got?
I'm sorry, you derailed the show on that one.
Terribly sorry.
I'm so glad that Garage Sale Woman wasn't so close to the show that she didn't. Oh, what happened when you knew? Who did you know? Like, I'm glad that didn't quite happen. Buy or sell number 1. It's funny that you kind of I'm combining two of the things that you asked me about. You were more into the college basketball national championship game last night than you were into Raw.
Sell. I checked in on the basketball a couple times. Told myself I was going to really get into it in the second half, and then it was a double-digit game, and UConn was doing what they did. And yeah, I watched one shining moment this morning and ended up focused more on Raw. So Hunter, you got me.
Nice volleyball clap for Triple H.
Absolutely. He got me.
It is a little bit like the UFC where it felt very stale, and you wonder, are they going to be able to make this thing exciting again? Like, when is that going to happen? And then it's like, boom, they got you.
Now, I will say, in terms of the eyeball test for basketball, I thought there were some good games in the men's tournament. That last game, it was like 48% on one side and 45 on the other. I mean, there was some good quality ball going on. That wasn't the issue. I wasn't drawn to it. So that was it.
Buy or sell number 2, Eddie for Purdue, 2-time national player of the year. Mm-hmm. You think of him as a truly great college basketball player. like with the Leitners and the,
sell. And it's not his fault. I mean, you can't help. You sort of can't help what era you're in. If you're an actor in a movie, in a horrible era of movies, like, I'm not going to totally bag on you because you're in a bad era of movies. This dude's playing college basketball in 2024. He's playing, he's a badass center in a watered down sport that doesn't care about centers. Like, how am I supposed to
37 and 10? He had one of the great championship game performances last night.
Yeah.
But I don't feel like none of us want to say out loud, that was like Magic Johnson in the national championship game. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah. And I feel bad for his teammates that are trying to defend him. And they're seeing all this stuff on social media and all these comments. And it's like, yeah, I don't know how to, people should just nicely say it to him, but they're not. They're being mean. But yeah, you can't, it is an apples and oranges comparison in terms of, as far as I'm concerned.
Buy or sell number 3, the supporting cast for the Iowa's women team and the supporting cast for the Purdue team. They should get together and go to the NIT.
Buy, and maybe they can come up with 4 combined bench points, because I think they had 2, right? It was by the way, do you know what the bench points were for Purdue last night?
I know they didn't have. They were like the Iowa women for a while. They just didn't have any.
It was that putback dunk. That
sick dunk.
That silly sick dunk from that kid named Heidi. That's their only bench points of the entire ball game, and Iowa had a goose egg.
Wow,
that's crazy. That the second place teams in men's and women's basketball combined for 2 bench points. Like, find every great coach that loves fundamentals. That'd kill them all. Like, that would drive them insane. That's amazing.
Buy or sell number 4. I'm going to ask a WWE question to you here.
Mm-hmm.
You think by the time next year's WrestleMania rolls around that Cody Rhodes will not have lost the belt?
I will sell just because I'm hoping that this is the case. I think Hunter understands the value of losing matches and putting people over. One of my favorite stats in wrestling is Triple H's WrestleMania records, like 10 and 14, something like that. Because he values that kind of stuff. I do not think Cody goes from now until next WrestleMania with that belt. I think hopefully they can tell some stories, because Ric Flair is partially Ric Flair because he's a 16-time champion. So is Cena. So are some. That's valuable too. I don't think he goes a full year with it.
I mean, hell, even Booker T, could put up a full fistful of fingers and say that's how many times so it's interesting. I think I'm curious how often the strap gets exchanged now that we're not in an era where like full presidential cycles go by and the belt's still on one guy. So,
right. It was silly. And even if they do, at least they'll tell the story better than they did with Romans. Romans was just silly. The way he held onto the belt was just insulting to everyone involved.
And finally, buy or sell number 5. You think I've lied about the person in my dream last night and that it was someone that has been mentioned so far during the chat? And I'm going to tell you when the show's over exactly who it is.
I'm going to buy, and I think it was Ron McKelvey. That's who I think. No. I will sell. I will sell. Yes, I'll sell and say you have not, that you have yet to reveal the actual name.
What? I know I haven't.
Yes. So,
all right. I will tell you shortly what
Okay.
that dream was, just so that you can get a chuckle out of it. I do think you will chuckle. That's it. That's how we play buy or sell.
Very nice. All right. Remember to like, subscribe, and get those notifications to Orange Bloods Live. Let me see. How does I'm just double checking this chat, see if there was anything there. Thank you for jumping in today to the Specs chat. Thanks to Specs for being a great partner of ours here at Orange Bloods Live. And remember, this afternoon it is the Modcast. You heard Ketch talking about the communication between himself and Anwar and Jason and Alex. The full power of that may come together today at 4. Although, is Jason a part of Modcast?
Yeah, he's back. He's back.
Okay, sweet. All right. Modcast at 4, the very latest that those guys are hearing from Texas. Obviously, Anwar was there today with the Sarkeesian media event. He will give you his thoughts there, and the guys will talk Texas football and a whole lot more. So check it out. Thanks to over 440. We're almost at 450 as we get ready to close the door in the Specs chat. Thank you for that. Check out all the videos. Check out the video shorts. I got a couple of video shorts out right now about Texas and the draft and some history that Texas is going after. Catch, there's something that neither house divided team has ever done in the draft, and Texas has a chance to check it off their list this year. Texas has never had multiple players drafted in 3 different rounds. It's never happened.
Interesting.
But I found 12 teams that have done that, while Texas and Texas A&M have not. So go check out those video shorts.
Nerd.
Go check out those video shorts for those other teams, the elite of the elite, where Texas is trying to get in terms of the draft. All right, everybody take care of themselves. Until high noon tomorrow, we are house divided.